welcome everybody to our regular city council meeting in the city of Fulshear, July 19th, 2016. And the time is 7 p.m. Ms. D, if you would make note, please, that the council is all present, so we do have a quorum. So noted. Thank you. To get the evening started, we have an invocation by Pastor Steve Littlefield from Simonton Community Church in Simonton, Texas. We appreciate you being here. And so if everybody would stand with Mr. Littlefield for the prayer, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and also the Pledge of Allegiance to the Texas flag.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the day, that this is the day that you have made. We thank you for your sovereignty, that you're still on your throne. We thank you that in the midst of all the craziness in our society and in our world today, that you are still our protection. We thank you for the protections that we enjoy in this community, and we ask that you'd continue to protect us. In light of all the things that are going on in our country, we also ask special protection over all of our police officers, Chief Kenny and all the men and women that serve with him. We also ask for your protection over our firefighters with Chief Herc and all the men and women that serve with him. Father, we ask that you watch over all of our first responders in this county that come to our aid and put their lives on the line every day. We do thank you for your protection over us and our families. We also thank you for your provisions. We continue to pray for those in the Simonton area and all throughout our county and up and down the Brazos River that are still recovering from the floods of just a few weeks ago. We ask that you just provide for them in ways that they haven't even thought of yet, and just help them walk through the challenges of recovery. We do thank you for the ways that you've provided even for this community. We praise you for the new schools that are starting. Thank you that last week teachers and staff are moving into their offices and starting to plan for the new year. We just ask for your provision there as students and families and a new community gets used to new schools with new traffic patterns and things like that. Father, we also just pray for your peace tonight in each one of our lives, in this community. We know that true peace only comes from Jesus Christ. We pray that you would help us hold on to him through all the challenges that life promises to bring us. We pray for your wisdom and discernment for those in this meeting tonight, and pray for your guidance for this community. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag and pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Moving on to section 2, is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to speak to council relating to agenda and non-agenda items. Speakers are advised that comments cannot be received on matters which are the subject of a public hearing. Once the hearing has been closed, speakers are required to register in advance and must limit their presentations to 3 minutes. First, we have Maureen Dentler. Sorry, Dentler.
I didn't have my sign up for him.
Okay. So you don't wish to speak?
Well,
You have 3 minutes if you like.
I won't use the whole 3 minutes,
That's
but
okay.
I'm not in favor of that land deal with Mr. Duke. It just does not sound kosher. Sounds kind of shady to me with his reputation, so I'm not in favor.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Rhonda Kirkendall.
I'll speak at the agenda item.
We're no longer speaking on the agenda items. We're speaking in public comments, which is at the beginning of the meeting. So if you'd like to speak, it would be at this time.
microphone?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the city council this evening. I really just have one question in regards to the potential land purchase with Mr. Duke. That question is why? The citizens of Fulshear elected the members of this council based on faith and trust that each of you would carry out your fiduciary responsibilities that's in the best interest of Fulshear. If there are opportunities for the city to purchase this land for a third of the amount that has been discussed, you are expected to at least investigate and do everything reasonably possible to pursue that opportunity. How can city council justify spending about $164,000 per acre for land when there are opportunities to purchase the property at a fraction? Even if this cost is $50,000, $55,000, or even a little bit more, I would say that the city of Fulshear would save substantial amounts of money that could be used on other needed projects, perhaps the flooding of Bodart. Whenever I'm making a hard decision, I like to put it to pen and paper, and I write out a pros and cons list. And so what are the pros and cons of going ahead with this deal? The pros: the seller, who is friends to several on council, will be getting a very lucrative deal. And a former city council member who is now working for Mr. Duke will also receive a handsome payment. But what are the cons? The seller is not the owner of the land. The seller is upping the cost by over 350%. The seller has no contract with the city. The seller is currently being sued for real estate fraud. The seller has agreed to throw in more land known as the Woodham property, that he also does not own. There's no way to adequately protect the city's interests in either tract of land, particularly land that he does not own. The seller has many entities, corporations, limited liability companies that were created and then forfeited at whim. The entity that is purportedly selling the property to the city of Fulshear currently has no assets. It will have nothing to offer for recourse to the city if Duke fails to follow through with the remainder of the land deal. The dangers of doing business with this seller far outweigh the advantages. I'm asking each one of you to do what you are elected to do. You've been elected to make the hard decisions, but you must keep in mind that the honorable, fiscally responsible decision to make here is to spend our hard-earned tax dollars with great care. Would you buy your house under similar circumstances? Again, I'm left with only one question: why? For whoever votes yes on the Duke land deal, can you please tell us, all of your constituents here, why before you vote yes? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Tommy Kirkendall.
Is it true that the home rule charter gives former mayor 6 minutes to speak? All right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I have a couple of things. First, the land deal, and second, boards and commissions. Fact one, the land deal being discussed here tonight by City Council was started under my administration, and it was founded upon good faith efforts by the city to enter a contract for land for our wastewater treatment plant. We did not feel at that time it was necessary to perform a background investigation for someone to sell us some of their land. Fact two, as we continue the process, the pressure to act urgently and provide a large cash down payment became very intense upon myself, and that raised a red flag in my mind. Fact three, you have so much more information in your hands today to make a better decision, and you have no binding contract with Mr. Duke. So please take that under consideration. On boards and commissions, I'm troubled by the wholesale replacement of so many board and commission members at once. City council members, you'll have to deal with this issue tonight. I wanted to come here tonight and say how proud I am of all the board and commission members that have served this great city over the last decade. Some of the members stepped forward and volunteered when no one else was interested. Depending how City Council acts tonight, the following individuals may no longer be serving the city of Fulshear. From Planning and Zoning, that's Derek Einkoff, David Worley, Ira Leary, Bill Heedy. 4A is Bill Archer, Stephen Gill, J.B. Collins. 4B is Larry Bustring, Mandy Leary, Joe Douglas, Parker Knapp, Holly Royer, and Parks and Rec is Cheryl Finney. This list includes 5 former council members and years of Fulshear's history. All these individuals had a hand in the Fulshear we all enjoy today and are proud to call home. We owe them all a debt of gratitude for their time, commitment, and dedication. These individuals and others who serve can be credited with 1, the quality development Fulshear can be credited with, or that Fulshear has become to be known for. 2, expanded water and sewer infrastructure that serve our new businesses and the new schools coming in. 3, our nice welcome to Fulshear signs. 4, support of the Fulshear Farmers Market and Arts Fulshear. 5, enhanced parks like the one you see outside here. 6, support of the Fulshear Area Chamber of Commerce, now boasting over 400 members. 7, strong financial support of our community festivals. And 8, the great reputation and the brand that Fulshear enjoys due to extensive marketing and economic development campaigns that were funded by the 4A and the 4B corporations. 2 sentences. Job well done, and I thank each one of these volunteers, along with any others who may have served. Fulshear would not be where we're at today without each one of their service, and so I'd like to thank them publicly.
Next up, we have Miss Lori Zante.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Zante. According to April 19, 2016 minutes, a motion was made by Councilmember Krennick to approve resolution number 2016-303, 304, 305, and 306. The motion was carried by all city council members with no one voting nay. Everyone was excited about the much-needed land deal at that time. This agreement was all done under former Mayor Tommy Quickendall's leadership, which he just admitted. The facts are as follows. The city set the price of the land. The city did an appraisal and told them this is what we will pay, and it was accepted. The previous mayor signed the LOI to get this deal rolling. The deal hasn't changed since he signed it. So explain to me, how does a deal which was so wonderful in April all of a sudden become the subject of verbal and social media attacks? In my opinion, it's because Mr. Duke endorsed Mayor Roberts during the election campaign and not Tommy. Some people began posting videos on YouTube that make Fulshear look like a bunch of buffoons. I'm disappointed that CJ and the city council are not doing anything to stop this. We have developers, potential businesses, potential residents, and future employees looking at us with a microscope through social media and deciding to spend their money elsewhere. This continual infighting and division is destroying this community and lowering our property values while people are losing their jobs. These videos and others they have posted not only causes harm to the ones they are slandering, but it causes harm to all of us. What will it take for the venomous attacks to stop? Why can't we all just respect each other and get along? It's really that simple, people. Someone needs to end all this animosity and strife, and I've talked about this before. I'm sorry, but it really upsets me, so I'm getting emotional. It appears there is confidential information which has not been released by the city, yet has been posted on Facebook. CJ, I would like you to publicly confirm or deny which council member leaked this confidential information. If not, how did people acquire this vital information and post it to social media while making public accusations and putting the city at risk? Moving forward, how can we trust that the city and all the city council members have the taxpayers' best interests at heart? Thank you.
That's it for the public comment. We'll be moving to section 3 with the consent items. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and are generally enacted in one motion. The exception to the rule is that a council member may request one or more items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action.
Mayor, I request that item L, N, and O be removed from the consent agenda. as in Nancy.
Any others?
I have three, A, E, and G.
A, E, and G.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll make a motion, call for a motion to approve item B, C, D, F, H, I, J, K, M as in Mary.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Krennic to approve those items.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Ridge. Any questions? No questions? All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That item passes. All right, we'll take, item L first.
We can actually start with G.
I mean, start with G?
Yeah, 'cause
Okay, start with G.
not flipping back and forth.
Let's go with item G, which is consent. Excuse me, we'll start with Mr. Murdock's first. We'll go with A and just go in chronological order. A is consent and approval of the Commons at Fulshear final plat.
My issue with this one is on this, I'm not exactly sure where it's at, and my question is if it's south on Bodart, did the engineers review the drainage? It shows that the engineers reviewed the drainage. Mr. Gork states that the drainage district does not lie in the right of way, but, after the flood, that whole area was flooded. I just wanted to ask the question, is that acceptable?
Mr. Murdock, the property lies on Katie Fulshear Road between Bogart and Ivans Elementary, between the high school and Ivans Elementary.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna get through them all if you don't mind. Any other questions on item A? We'll move down to item E, which is consent and approval of Creek Falls at Cross Creek Ranch, section 9, final plat.
On this one, my only piece on this one was, it says typically the municipalities we work with on a regular basis require a street name change at each 90-degree turn. Is this a common practice, that's set as a standard for our community, for developers to, that are required to use?
Mr. Leindecker's here with,
I can answer
engineering
that. I'm
answer.
David Linedecker. The planning commission has come with an agreement. Anytime there's a 90-degree bend in a road from now on, starting with the last meeting, we're going to require a name change to be consistent.
Okay. Thank you.
And that was approved with that.
Any other questions on item E? Moving to item G, which is consent and approval of box playground preliminary plat. I think CJ at the last moment added a document in our Dropbox, so if you have any questions on that one.
CJ, can you tell it? Hang on, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the map is the southwesternmost lot on Terry Lane.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, it is the southwesternmost lot on Terry Lane. And, it's a subdivision of about a 4-acre tract into two tracts, this one being 1.8 acres.
CJ, what's the difference between the one that's in Dropbox and the one that's on our desk?
The only difference is I was told that certain packets didn't have the, materials in front of it that I handed out related to the document there. So I
Okay.
want to make sure the council had those going in the.
But the one in our Dropbox was approved by planning
Yeah,
commission, this one
yeah.
has not been.
Right, that was the preliminary that I submitted to P and Z, I went through that file.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions?
What is this? Like, what is this development?
It's not necessarily a development, it's a subdivision of private property, and anytime they do that, they have to apply a name, I don't know where this name came from.
So the city doesn't know what type of.
No, No.
development
It's,
is?
it's in the R1 zone, so it has to be, residential, large lot, so acre or more residential, or they could be dividing off to build a barn dominium. I don't know exactly what they're asking you to do.
Right, and in all their no objection letters, it identifies it as a single-family residential lot.
And the name came from, the applicant's last name is Box.
Yeah.
So that's where the name came from. So it's commercial, but it's.
Any other questions? Being none, we'll move to item L, which is consent and approval of Fulshear Run Phase 2 sign master plan.
Is Mr. Konopka here?
Do not see anybody from Fulshear Run. Ms. Kilgore.
Yeah, I do have a question. So when he gave his projection, on those signs, it says there's variance by a foot, both in height and in width. Was the P&Z, did they approve to the maximum? Did they specify for each sign, or can they vary depending on what's printed on the sign?
They can vary depending on what's printed on the sign based on how many words.
Okay,
is needed.
so are we to read that as a minimum and a maximum
Yes,
for
ma'am.
signage both in width and height?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was my only question. They look great, but
Okay.
everything had a this to this, and it was an estimate. I was like, are we estimating or?
Based on how many words.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other questions on item L? Being none, we'll move to item N. It's consent and approval of conveyance and acceptance for the following located in Fulshear Mud 1. There's 4 subsections to this. 1 is utility conveyance and security agreement for Lake Hill Farm Way. 2 is street acceptance for Fullbrook and Fulshear Creek, section 4. 3 is utility conveyance and security agreement for Fullbrook and Fulshear Creek, section 4. And number 4 is accept special warranty deed for lift station sites in section 3 and 4 in Fullbrook and Fulshear Creek.
All right,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, I'm getting down
She's
to
getting
it.
there.
Sorry, there's a whole lot here.
Anybody else have a question?
Okay, on each of these, some of these are signed, some of these are not signed. What's the rationale behind it? Can Mr. Leindecker kind of give us a quick rundown on each of them? Because I don't think they had to be presented to P&Z, so, all right. I just didn't know why they were on there, and I feel like we're,
And linger and conveyances
okay.
that were requested by the developer.
Yeah, 'cause some of them have some pretty old dates on them, that's why I'm just looking at them going, what happened and why are they all stacked on here?
And then Cindy,
Well, the reason they're stacked on here is that the developers have decided to ask that all these get put on at the same time.
Okay.
We do have a 2-year maintenance bond from tonight's night, if y'all, from today's date, if y'all accept those, on all of these conveyances. The first one is just for the utilities, on the Lake Hill Farm Way. The second one is streets, for section 4 of Fullbrook and Fulshear Creek. The third one is another utility conveyance. Number 4 is for the lift station that serves 3 and 4 in Fullbrook on Fulshear Way. And once we accept those, we agree that we're gonna maintain those. If there is a problem, we have the right to go back on the maintenance bond, for up to 2 years.
So all of these will have the same effective date as today if they're approved on our consent
Yes,
agenda?
ma'am. And the next section the same way.
Okay. CJ, when were these first brought to the city's attention?
some of these have been here for quite a while. This relates back to the issues that we started to discover with legacy section 3 and other issues, both within the Cross Creek and Fullbrook and Creek Estates development. And so we held off on acceptance of advances until David had done a review and sent up a letter recommending their approval.
Okay. And you've received all the drawings and you've
Yes,
looked?
ma'am, we have, as-built drawings of every one of these. We have 2-year maintenance bonds. Everything has been tested, and passed all the tests. We have all the inspection reports from mine inspectors, and we have all the soils and concrete testing reports also.
Thank you, Mr. Linden.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions? Ms. Grant, any other questions?
Oh, no, not on M.
N, okay.
Yeah.
Being none, we'll move to item O, which is consent and approval of the conveyance and acceptance for the following located in Cross Creek Ranch.
These are exactly the same, except they're in Cross Creek Ranch. The testing, the inspection, the 2-year maintenance bond, everything is in order on these, and I would recommend that they be accepted for maintenance.
And the reason I pulled that is all we got was a letter in our packet saying that you would come talk to us tonight, so.
Well, I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on item O? No? Call for a motion to approve item A, E, G, L, N, and O.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gill, second by Ms. Tristan. Any questions? All those in favor by saying aye? Any opposed? Those items pass. Thank you. Moving to section 4 is our business items. Item A is consideration and presentation of the City of Fulshear Annual Audit and Financial Report for the fiscal year 2014 through 2015 by Whitney Penn. And tonight we have the presence of Mr. Rowe here. Thank you.
Mayor, members of council. You have in your packets the annual financial report of the City of Fulshear as of and for the year ending September 30th, 2015. And I have prepared some highlights to discuss. Our audit was, starting off on page 1, is the report of the independent auditors. Our audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We have issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance we can give. We indicate that the amounts that are in the financial statements are materially correct. I had a brief conversation with one of the council members at the beginning of the meeting. The city's financial statements present the financial statements in 2 forms. A government-wide presentation, which includes everything you own versus everything you owe. And it's going to include not only your current assets, your receivables, and your current payables, but it's also going to include the streets, some of the things we were talking about were conveyed tonight, buildings, equipment, that sort of thing, long-term assets, along with any long-term debt. And we'll talk about a particular new long-term debt you have presented tonight. On page 12 and 13 of the report, you'll see that the financial statements and the government-wide financials are broken down into 3 different sections: the governmental activities, the business type activities, and the component units. We'll go backwards here and start on the component units. That's the 4A important corporations. At the end of the year, you had $1.2 million in cash in those corporations, split evenly between the 2, not exactly evenly, very close. Receivables at $120,000, which represents 2 months in sales tax that you're going to be collecting, ending up with a net position of $1.3 million. Your business type activity, you had total assets of $38 million, $32 million of that were capital assets. That's the infrastructure. That's in your 2 enterprise funds, the city facilities and the Cross Creek facilities. You had cash in there of $4.7 million. Current liabilities of $427,000, which left you with a net position of $38 million. Your governmental activities, government-wide, you had cash of $8.2 million, receivables, primarily sales tax and some property tax of $212,000, capital assets of $25 million, current liabilities of $1.3 million, and a new item that's on your financials, a net pension liability of $159,000. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Give you total liabilities of $1.5 million and a net position of $32.7 million. Now, how did we get there? What does that mean? Last year, you ended up on your governmental activities with an ending net position of $29.4 million, so you added $3.2 million to your net position during the year. This consists of $2.5 million in general revenues. Typically, that's going to be property taxes, sales tax, and the like. Charges for services, $3.1 million. Operating grants of $29,000. Capital grants of $2.7 million. And program expenses of $5.2 million. You can see on your presentation business type activities. with charges for service of $3.3 million, some capital grant of $2.8 million, and expenses of $3.1 million, increase your net position $3.1 million in your business type activities. Your cash and investments year-end total $14.2 million. $11 million of that was in demand and money market accounts. $200,000 certificates of deposit, and you had some Texas class money, $2.6 million invested. I have a long list of where that's all broken out. You have money set aside for a regional park of $1.4 million. Economic development of $1.2 million, Fulshear facility of $294,000, restricted Fulshear facility of $1.2 million, Cross Creek Ranch facility of $3.2 million, and unrestricted $5.8 million for a total of $14.2 million. General fund balance, you have a restricted amount in there of $131,000. You began the year with $4.3 million in unassigned fund balance. That increased by $1 million for an ending unassigned fund balance of $5.3 million and a total fund balance of $5.4 million. Your general fund revenues, the bulk of your revenues actually come from license and permits. As you're growing and things are happening, about 33%. Property taxes made up 22%, sales tax 12%, franchise and other taxes 7%. Charges for services this year was at 13%, and that's because sanitation, garbage pickup is now being run through the general fund as revenue in and money paid out. That's kind of bumped up those numbers a little bit. On the general fund expenditures, you spend 30 cents of every dollar on public safety, 10% on public works, you have 6% capital outlay, permits and inspection at 11%, and general admin was at 43%. Now sometimes you have a general admin at 40%, that sounds like a lot. But you've got a lot of things that you don't actually split out, insurance and that sort of thing that are included in that general admin bucket, if you will. This brings us to our net pension liability we talked about. Not a huge number. It started out at, and this relates to the Texas Municipal Retirement System. You have a defined benefit plan. You had a net pension liability at the end of last year of $124. I say the end of last year. The measurement dates on this is we're going to turn you all to accountants here. The measurement date for your net pension liability is the December year end, the December before your fiscal year end. So your 2015 financial statements would be the December 31st, 2014. They're in arrears for the presentation of the calculations that are done. But your net pension liability as of the end of 2013 was $124,000. It grew to $159,000 at the end of 2014, which you see in your financial statements. The percentage funded of your net pension liability went from 57% to 65%, so you improved there. Your total covered employees went from $870,000 to 1.3, almost $1.4 million. So you have a lot more employees, and your net pension liability as a percentage of payroll went from 14% to 12%. So your trends are all moving in the right direction. You're just a growing city. Your number of $159,000, typically we'd like to see that percentage funded to be at least 85%, but your number is so small, you're in good shape right now. The net pension liability is 12%, is extremely, that's a great number. Some required communications that we have. Our responsibilities under generally accepted auditing standards include the consideration of internal controls for the purpose of determining audit procedures, to plan and perform the audit to obtain a reasonable assurance that financial statements are free of material misstatements. And we wanted to point out that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. And I'd like to thank CJ and Christy for getting us the information we need to conduct the audits. On significant accounting policies, your policies and methods are appropriate in accordance with industry standards. There is one change this year, that is the recognition of your net pension liability. So as I talked about, it existed last year and existed every year you participate in the Texas Municipal Retirement System. It's just been reported on the face of the financial statements. Private sector, I think, began doing that when the ERISA Act was filed in 1972, but I won't go into all that at this time. Judgment and accounting estimates, there's not everything in your financial statements aren't invoices necessarily, so you do have some estimates that you make. Your allowance for uncollectible taxes, for instance, estimated the lives of capital assets, and the actuarial estimates related to your pension plan. We feel that the staff, management has a reasonable basis for these estimates. We had no disagreements with management over the application of accounting principles or judgment about accounting estimates. There were no difficulties encountered with management during the performance of our audit. I've given you a graph here showing your expenditures in the last 5 years. Just to recap for folks in the room, total expenditures from the general fund, Fulshear facility, and Cross Creek facility in 2011 were $2.5 million. They're very close to $7 million this year. And that just has to do with the growth and what's going on. Large growth in the general fund this year, with, as you can tell from the expenditures on payroll and the employees that you have. It's more required communications. We're not aware of any consultation with other accountants. Our communication with the management is in the form primarily of written communications. We have the engagement letter that you hired us. We have management representation, which management informs us that they've accepted responsibility for the financial statements and that they've showed us everything that we've asked for. And we confirm that we are independent accountants with respect to the city of Fulshear, Texas. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
Mr. Brown. The ending balance on page 4 shows a figure of governmental activities.
Yes, sir.
It shows 32,696,126, but the net position on page 3 shows 32,726,126. So it's a difference of about $30,000. Is that what would that difference be? Is that a typo, or is it?
That would more than likely be a typo. It's almost exactly at 30,000, and that I probably, pardon me, I probably fact-checked that.
Okay.
I would get that answer for you.
All right, but the financials.
Yeah, financials would be right. I put together the staff put together the financials. I put together the presentation. So I would bet on the financials.
All right. And on page 11, the actual estimates related to the pension plan. Who would have prepared those actuarial estimates?
That would have been the actuaries for the Texas Municipal Retirement System.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And those are included in the financial statements. You can see what we want.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Crowe.
Thank you.
Moving on now. Item B is consideration and possible action to approve modifications to Francis Smart Park. Mr. Ross, take the lead on this. Share, if you don't mind.
Attached is a proposed updated location for the historic section house, as we're calling it. If approved, this would allow for the permanent placement of the home instead of temporarily placing it and then moving it again at a later date. Placing the home at this location, we think, will possibly require one about 6-inch oak tree to be relocated unless we can figure out and get it in there. That's what we're working on right now. But worst case, it would require that relocation of that oak tree. It also requires the removal of 3 crepe myrtles and another tree that's in poor condition adjacent to the crepes that are all on your last page of the pictures there. Staff is recommending that we place the home at that permanent site, which is generally on the left side as you look at it from the street. The back of the home would generally align with the gazebo. If you look at it, that's kind of what we're proposing. The house move is scheduled for this week, worst case, first part of next week. They're making progress getting the home up and ready to go. The funds for this work, for the trees and things like that, should be available in the already approved funds that council has passed.
Just to be clear, Mr. Ross, there's no impact to the gazebo, but from these pictures you sent or just passed out right now, it looks like we're gonna take out all these picnic tables and the barbecue barbecue pit?
Picnic table, the home will actually be 10 to 20 feet in front of that barbecue pit is what we're proposing. It was hard to get, I couldn't get a good aerial view because the trees cut it out. So I tried to just put an X which is meant to be about 10 to 20 feet in front of the barbecue pit, and the hose reel that you see kind of lined up with that.
Okay.
So it would be as far as we can get it, 10 to 20 feet from the trees to the left of the site, that row of trees there, and about 10 to 20 feet from that barbecue pit and hose reel that align with the back.
And do we have a cost estimate on relocating a tree versus just replanting a tree? Because, I mean, with relocating trees, I've heard things that, yeah, you can pay a lot of money, but it's not gonna survive. And I don't wanna throw good money after bad if it makes more sense to put in a new tree. This is only a.
We would love to have that opportunity to do one or the other, and that's been suggested as well. If it's probably gonna cost more to move it with the spade and everything than it would to just plant a new one. We may not be able to go buy a 6-inch diameter, but we could probably get a 4-inch or so. We can compare those prices if council's okay with one or the other. That would be our preference as well.
Yeah, if we could see the cost on that, because again, we wanna make prudent decisions and not pay for something if we relocate a tree and it dies. And I don't know how much tree relocation costs, but we wanna make sure that we're spending good dollars.
When there's a chance it won't have to be touched at all.
Right, yeah.
That's our hope. But if we could have the latitude, if you'll give staff that, to either plant or relocate, that would be great.
And I had the county extension agent go look at the catalpa tree that is to the left of the crepe myrtles, and he said it's unhealthy and needed to be culled anyway.
The crepe myrtle?
No, the catalpa.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The AC kicked on, so I can't really hear you across the table.
There's a tree in poor condition you'll see in that last
Right,
picture
it's the
right
one on
next
the
to the
far
grave.
left,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
It's a great tree, but it's not in good health.
We just wanted to make sure that everyone was okay with this location and the impact of those trees, removing those, and either relocating or planting a new, or hopefully not having to do anything to it would be our goal. If all of you are good with that, then that's.
So, maybe you said this, but I just didn't hear you. The concrete picnic tables, those will be taken out or will not?
One of them that looks like will certainly be impacted, that pad will probably be removed,
Right.
or we'll just, if it falls underneath the home and it doesn't make any difference, then we'll just have a pier and beam that would sit on top of it, and it would just happen to be underneath the home. But yeah, the
No
picnic
impact.
tables,
No impact to the gazebo.
no impact to the gazebo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Call for a motion.
I make a motion. Approve the location of the switch house.
I have a motion by Ms. Rich to approve the modifications to Francis Martin Park. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Tristan. Do we have any other questions?
You have a question. Michael, the amount wasn't included on this memo. What is the amount? It's
Trees.
25,000.
It's 25,000.
I thought it was 25, capped at 25 at the last meeting.
Is that 25,000?
I think so.
And we think, Michelle, the relocate, the removal of those is 300 to 500?
Well, we don't.
300 to 500 to do the removal of the tree and the crates. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Being none, all those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed? That item passes. Moving on to item C, consideration and possible action to approve the Third Amendment to the development agreement between the City of Fulshear and CCR Texas Holdings for the purpose of including St. Faustina Catholic Church, allowing it to continue its development. And who's taking this one? So,
Gregor, myself, Mr. Mayor, this item D and item E all relate to the transition and development of the St. Faustina Church site here on the front side of Cross Creek Ranch. We allowed and approved the annexation of that property by the MUDs previously this year, but now they need permission to tie in to the utilities and to share in the cost and the burdens like all the other residents within the development. So that's what these agreements tie to.
And CJ, or Mr. Snipes, to be clear, the reason we're amending I know St. Faustina is part of 171, but we're amending 169, 170, 172, and 173 because of the cost sharing.
Cost sharing on the large wastewater treatment facilities as well as the stations and everything else.
Mayor, if you'll entertain this motion, I make a motion to approve items C, D, and E. since they're all kind of interrelated.
Okay. Take item C, D, and E together. We have a motion by Ms. Krennic to take items C, D, and E. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Steele. Any other questions? Being none, I call for a vote for items C, D, and E together. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Items C, D, and E pass. Thank you very much. Moving to item F, consideration and possible action to approve interlocal agreement with respect to the forfeiture and contraband with Harris County District Attorney.
Steph,
Go ahead, Mr. Snipes.
did you have anything you wanted?
The district attorney wants an interlocal agreement with Fulshear regarding the forfeiture of their contraband. They provided the initial document. We cleaned it up a bit. We haven't heard any objection from them, so it is ready for adoption.
Did the clean version, that's the first part of our packet, include all of the changes made by the city of Fulshear in the red line version?
I don't know.
No, ma'am, that was the initial version sent by the district attorney. The red line version modifies that version.
Okay, so my question is, are all those red lines in the clean version?
Yeah, they can be, yes.
My question is,
Yeah,
I thought that they were, but I didn't know if you sent it redlined over to Ms. Anderson's office in Harris County and got feedback on our red lines and then incorporated and didn't incorporate some. It looks like they're all there.
I believe they're all there.
Okay. So we're voting on the amended agreement as we revised it.
Correct.
And they've accepted those amendments.
We have not heard any objection.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement with Harris County regarding the forfeiture of contraband with the Harris County District Attorney's Office.
I have a motion by Ms. Krennic. Do we have a second? By Ms. Ridge. We have a second by Ms. Ridge. Any questions?
I had a question on this
Good.
in
Mr. Murdoch.
regards to the automobiles. Do we have an agreement like this with Fort Bend County?
Yes.
We do. And so are we gonna have to share those assets with both DAs?
The same asset?
Because if you, based on this agreement, if you acquire 10 automobiles, then you have to give X amount to the best, or 3 back to the Harris County District Attorney. So is that agreement the same in Fort Bend County? And how do they share some of this?
Basically, the agreement is 10% of seized assets, so it all depends on where the assets are seized. So if we seize assets in Harris County, then that's the agreement we're talking about. If we seize assets in Wayne County, then that's where they're seized. That's the only entity we share with. So we have the same agreement with the state as well as the federal government.
And Chief, just to clarify, this typically applies to seizures of cash related to illicit.
Cash and assets.
Yeah, cash and assets. I'm not aware of us getting a whole lot of cars.
Actually, there's about 4. But what we normally do is we auction those and then the proceeds are
And well, I was gonna say that, okay. I would note that the enforcements are based on a shared resource model based on who makes up the task force that we participate in.
Any other questions? Being none, all those in favor by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Item F passes. Thank you. Moving to item G, consideration and possible action to approve ordinance number 2016-1220, ordinance of the city of Fulshear providing for residency restrictions for sex offenders.
You have a corrected copy in front of you. One of our cycles made it appear that we were trying to enhance that restriction zone to 3,000 feet. It's 2,000 feet. Grady likes to push the envelope and not that much. And then there was another question submitted earlier this afternoon in regards to the fine, and I'm going to let Grady explain the penalty provisions.
Well, I've looked at it since we talked.
Okay.
So, the penalty is basically $500. There's provision in there that allows it to go up for some other issues to $2,000, but in practicality, it's $500. If somebody doesn't register or violates this ordinance, and going within
2,000 feet of where children congregate. As during the charter debate, general law cities are being sued for these ordinances because of an attorney general opinion that said they did not have the power to go beyond what the state said at 1,000 feet from where children congregate. But they said it was perfectly fine for home rule cities. That's had the effect of sweeping sexual offender registrants into general law cities. One city I represent has had 3 this year, and 1 lawsuit over it. So it is out there. You can go to familywatchdog.net and click that, and you will be surprised at the number around 99. So anyway, this protects the city. It increases the state mandated 1,000 feet to 2,000 feet. And it's from wherever children congregate, basically playgrounds, swimming pools, that type of thing.
Is
But
it $500 a one-time?
per day,
Daily.
yeah. You know, how we fought the guy that was coming into the other cities, one, we wouldn't register it. And 2, we said it's $500 per day.
Great. I had a question. I struggled with this one because everybody should go to church, but youth, children, that's a common place for them. So I know that's not listed in here. Is 2,000 feet within a church distance, is that covered in this ordinance?
Well, it's where children congregate in Sunday school. I would certainly enforce it that way. This was put out about 10 years ago by TML. That's when I drafted it for Meadows Place, which is the city that's being sued. We updated it because the laws have changed. There are some cities that get into the degrees of sexual offenses, and that in turn impacts the distance from the child. I looked at that. Deer Park has that. It just was too complicated. It was unenforceable in the practice.
Well, the way this is currently drafted under section 3, it says, and I'm just reading an excerpt, 2,000 feet of any premise where children commonly gather, including but not limited to, and then has a list. Schools, daycares, playgrounds, public or private youth centers, public swimming pools, video or arcade facilities, because those are, and it goes on to talk about the code. So I don't think it necessarily prohibits if children are congregating and that would be within the confines of what section 3 is for that.
I mean, you could define public or private youth center.
Right.
Is it the police officers that determine this?
Yes, they register at the police department.
Do they interpret what they consider where children congregate?
Well, them and the prosecutor, yes.
I had another question.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see anywhere in here, and I'm just kind of concerned too, because how would this pertain to individuals currently living outside the city limits? We annex that land outside the city limits. How are we covered?
Their grandfather. Now, if they move out, like the case I'm handling now, and try to move back in, no.
We have a motion to make for approval of ordinance 2016.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2016-1220.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Krennick and a second by Ms. Ridge. Any other questions? Being none, all those in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item G passes. Thank you. Item H is consideration and possible action to approve ordinance 2016-1221, an ordinance of the city of Fulshear establishing a hotel occupancy tax for the city of Fulshear. Ms. Fritz, thank you.
Texas municipalities are authorized under the tax code to leverage a hotel occupancy tax
tax of up to 7% of the price paid for the estate room within their corporate limits. Additionally, cities under 35,000 in population can also levy that tax in their ETJ, as long as that levy does not result in a total rate in the incorporated areas of greater than 15%. So, implementing the local hotel occupancy tax is optional. Cities can do that by bringing forth an ordinance that's adopted by a simple majority. The local hotel occupancy tax, once implemented, is actually collected by the lodging providers, and it's remitted directly to the city instead of to the state and then the city. And it's provided by visitors as part of their lodging costs. So any local hot tax is in addition to a 6% state tax that's levied. Our legal counsel has prepared the ordinance before you this evening for your consideration, and it provides for a 7% hot levy in the city and our extraterritorial jurisdiction additionally. We currently do not have any lodging providers in our corporate limits or ETJ, but establishing the hot levy or the hotel occupancy tax will allow us to collect future revenue. It'll provide an additional source of outside dollars to reinvest in initiatives and projects in accordance with the tax code that enhance and promote tourism and the hotel and convention industry. Allowable hot revenue expenditures must meet a two-part test. I provided a significant amount of background in your packet documentation for your review. But the gist of all that is, again, it has to meet that two-part test. It has to promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry. It also has to fit into one of 9 statutorily provided categories, which was outlined in there. Hot funds, to summarize, can be a valuable economic development tool to encourage future community development, economic diversification, and the infusion of outside dollars into the local economy. I did want to add one kind of contextual note because I didn't include it in your council briefing document, but in terms of tax rates in the area around us, to make sure we're kind of consistent and congruent with our sister cities or our surrounding areas. This information was pulled a couple months ago, but I don't think anybody's changed their rates recently. Katie's total rate is 13%, so that's right where we would be with a 7% city levy. Richmond and their ETJ is at 13%. Rosenberg and their ETJ is at 13%. Sugarland and their ETJ is at 13%. And then Houston is at 17%. Houston actually has one of the highest rates, or the highest rate in Texas. So again, our proposed rate with this ordinance would be 13% total, 7% city and 6% state. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have. Do you know if Katy currently taxes their ETJ? Because I know all of our other surrounding sister cities do.
I don't know that offhand. I don't have that noted. But.
And if I understand this correctly, because you provided us with a wealth of information, so I appreciate that, Ms. Frick. But this is just the first step. This is not making a decision on how those dollars or that collection, if and when it does happen, will be spent. We're just setting the parameters for future lodging coming in.
Correct. The idea tonight is just to get a foundation for y'all to consider implementing a foundation, to have another tool in our toolkit, for lack of a better term, to look at some comprehensive plans and some strategic plans for economic development, cultural and tourism development, and other sorts of initiatives. We have another potential source of revenue to utilize for incentives or for community investment.
Approve ordinance 2016.
We have a motion to approve ordinance 2016-1221 by Ms. Ridge. We have a second by Ms. Tristan. Any other questions? Being none, all those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That item passes. Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Moving to item I, consideration and possible action to approve the creation of a professional engineering service pool and approving a list of qualified firms. Mr. Ross?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Staff has received and reviewed statements of qualifications for general engineering services and finds that the following firms meet the standards needed to perform this work for the city of Fulshear: Kimley Horn, KSA, McManus, Johnson, and HDR. The list of approved firms may grow as other firms submit and are approved in the future. I'm sorry?
Could you read them one more time, please?
Kimley Horn, KSA, McManus and Johnson, and HDR. And again, this is goes forward to council for consideration, the pool will grow, and we plan to spread the work amongst firms based on their specialties and their strengths. Thank you. I think. Thank you. Now back up. Staff recommends the following. Create a pool of approved engineering firms for general engineering services and include these 4 firms as the first 4 to enter the pool, and authorize the city manager to engage firms from the pool as needed to meet the city's engineering needs within the approved budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Ross, were there any firms that applied or submitted qualifications that were excluded from this list presently?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And is this an ongoing list that if firms are qualified, that they can submit qualifications to be included in this pool on a
Yes,
rotating
ma'am.
basis?
Absolutely.
Okay. And can you speak to the amount of, since the recommendation is to authorize the city manager to engage these firms, what is the budget threshold that you can engage without coming to council for approval?
Up to 50,000 is what the state allows. Cities typically adopt. So if the funds were available up to that amount, as Grady knows something I don't, then the city manager could authorize engineering contracts up to that amount, but I don't think that's our intent. We're picturing smaller chunks as needed, unless CJ has something else in mind. For the budget number?
So I'll tell you, I thought my recollection was 25,000. I didn't think it was a 50,000 threshold, but I just want confirmation.
50,000 is the requirement to competitively bid projects. Engineers cannot be competitively bid. They have their professional service, so you choose which engineering firm best meets your requirements, then you get to negotiate a price. So one is a project and one is an engineer.
Typically go ahead, CJ, I'm sorry.
Sorry. The way that we previously adopted the policy is that it's not on the basis of cost of the engineering services per se, but on the cost of the actual project.
Okay.
So greater than $500,000 requires specific letting. Less than $500,000, council makes a recommendation to council approval.
Right, but if they're saying to meet the city's engineering needs within the approved budget, is that approved budget threshold 25,000 or 50,000?
I think our procurement policy currently states 25, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
The state allows up to 50. We
Right,
may
no,
not
I
have adopted
understand,
that
that's
yet.
if we were gonna let it out for competitive bids and that, but internally, what's the threshold that we have to look at projects and choose from this list?
Okay, I'm sorry.
25 is correct, yes.
Staff recommends Kimley Horn, KSA, McManus and Johnson, and HDR. Do we have a motion to approve these as a professional service? We have a motion by Ms. Tristan. Do we have a second? I'll second. Second by Mr. Murdock. Do we have any other questions? Being none, all those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those items pass. Thank you. Moving to item J, consideration and possible action to select professional service provider and approve negotiation of contract for professional services related to the study and implementation of impact fees for the city of Fulshear.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has completed a review of these statements of qualifications that were submitted for the city's impact fee study. Following firms submitted statements of qualifications: Friesen Nichols, Kimley Horn, and HDR. Based on the review of these submittals and their subsequent, or also their presentation, it is staff's opinion that Kimley Horn is the best choice for the city's impact fee study. Far and away, they had the most experience, and it was all over the state for cities, and they've completed over 50 impact fee studies for cities over the past 15 years. Staff recommends Kimley Horn for the city's impact fee study and asks City Council to authorize staff to negotiate a proposal with them for these engineering services, and staff will plan to bring back the proposal to City Council at the August meeting for consideration.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Crank to approve Kimley Horn. Second. There was a second by Mr. Murdock. Any other questions? Being none, all those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Those opposed, nay. Item passes. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Moving to item K, consideration and possible action to select professional service provider and approve negotiation contract for professional services related to the creation of single-member electoral districts for the city of Fulshear.
As you know, part of the home rule charter requires a transition from at-large election districts or to single-member districts, and we vetted, solicited proposals from 8 entities which we located that provide the services. It's a pretty complex process to provide those. We actually received a couple of folks that demurred from responding, some failed to respond, and then 3 actually submitted formal responses. Of those 3, Knight Associates out of Austin, Texas, Bickerstaff, Delgado, Keith, and Acosta out of Austin, Texas, and Andrews Curve out of Houston, Texas, all replied. Based on our review of the statement of qualifications, and we also clarified some of the cost issues today, staff's recommendation is that we go with Bickerstaff, Delgado, Heath, and Acosta LLP for the provision of those services. Huge price difference. Yeah, I don't know how to explain the price one.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Tristan to approve Acosta. We have a second by Ms. Ridge. Any questions?
Yes, okay, so now that we got these prices and I'm just reading these emails for the first time, are we actually comparing apples to apples? Because our price ranges go from
18 to 250.
18,000 all the way up to 250,000.
And was the scope the same? It's very clear.
Yes, the scope and request for qualifications was clear as to what our expectations were and the timeline that needed to be provided to have those services. I'm not entirely sure why one of the firms hit the number that they hit that high. My supposition is that they're used to dealing with much larger entities with more complex issues. I think their last one that they cite was Houston Independent School District, which obviously has a constituency far greater than ours. The other 2 firms, all 3 firms, 2 of the firms have the same expert witnesses, demographers, to help them, assist them in the provision of demography services. Those are 2 professors from Rice University. So I don't think that was the cost differential. I think it was actually the attorney time associated by the one firm that bumped the price up.
Okay, well, what I'm concerned about is if we go to Bickerstaff's proposal on page, and they even say on section 3 of their proposal, they lay out their work. It doesn't include travel time, and they're in Austin, as opposed to more local firms, which we would not be paying for lawyers to drive back up and down the highway. And Andrews and Kirk, that's for Knight. I think that's for Mr. Knight and Partners. So, I just don't feel like we have apples to apples. Looking, I mean, 250 to 18, even if we do, there's a 10 times the amount of difference, 250,000 to 25,000. And if we assume that that's 100 hours worth of work, and all 3 proposals quoted 100 hours worth of work, that's $2,500 an hour for attorney time. I just don't think that this is apples to apples. I find it very hard to believe that anyone at that firm is actually billing $2,500 an hour.
We
They said in their proposal they were at $600 an hour, Michael. $600 an hour. Managers inquired with them why they had an extra 0.
Right,
They said-
that's what I would ask, saying, is that a typo, is it 25,000?
Yes, ma'am, we did, and I didn't include that email exchange with you, but we reached out to the principal that responded, and asked if we thought that was perhaps a typo, if they'd added an extra 0, and she assured us that was the correct number.
We have the 2 that are very similar, the 18 to 25, and then all of a sudden 250.
Right, and they use the exact same experts, so that's why I'm going, this doesn't make sense, because even if your expert fees are in the $10,000 to $20,000 range, this is still not on par.
Brady, you've been through this rodeo before. Do you remember how much the charge was at Mont Bellevue for this?
Mont Bellevue does not have districts.
Okay.
They have places.
Okay, so you haven't.
We have not district. That's why I said during the charter process, I'm not qualified to draw your districts.
Right.
Now, I've vetted the law firms as my duty as chief legal officer, and any of the three would be good. But Anderson Kerr's reference was HISD, Houston Independent School District. They have 115,000 students versus our 8,000 residents. I understand apples to apples, but you know, sometimes you do a graph, there's just an outlier. I don't know if they're so busy, it would only be worth it at that amount, or they really don't want it, I'm just speculating, or they really think this is what it's going to end up. But Bickerstaff's a good firm, and I've litigated against Barney, so, I mean, he's good too. And Barney and, Bickerstaff, as Councilman Rich said, are within $10,000 of each other. I do not, I was floored when $250,000 came through to draw initial districts. Your database is going to have to be drawn from, or built from scratch. And your census data is not good because the Fulshear city living lines were not sent up here. But in reality, 3/4 of your population is in one subdivision. Just pull the neighborhood map and go from there. And I've got friends at Andrews and Kerr. I don't know what the deal is.
Right, that's why when I saw this, I mean, we didn't get these numbers till after, at least I didn't see until after 5 o'clock today. I was shocked that was, I mean, that just seems
well, at $600 an hour, I didn't do the math, whatever that is into 2,500, that's 4,000 hours. Would that be at 2,400? Whatever the math is. That's more than 100 hours they quoted.
In the essence of time, I know we talked about this, CJ, the goal was in getting ballpark estimates for caps was so that CJ could give y'all a number tonight of a not to exceed. He can go to that firm only, he can go to a couple of firms and go ahead and request proposals and get the pricing and have a cap that CJ can work within. And obviously, if he's not happy with the cap, he would come back in August, but and the time is of the essence to this.
No, I absolutely.
And so that was the thought, is to try to move us forward and go ahead. That's why CJ wanted to get those estimates.
Mr. Robert, I think that's a great idea. I think it's wise on our part to be able to see what they're going to charge us. For instance, like this Bickerstaff example says 18 to 25,000, depending on the number of plans they want to consider. What are we going to consider from them? And I want to be able to see those numbers on things that we can't foresee, but they've been through this. They've been able to go through these processes with different councils throughout the state. It would be nice to be able to kind of see what we're getting into, even through all these, the top 2 or 3.
And I would kind of reference back to Mr. Altman's email, which is the last set of emails from, that's the $18,500 quote from Knight and Partners. And he has a pretty decent understanding of exactly what we're trying to get to, which is basically 3 options. He lays out the hour, the travel, etc.
We currently have a motion on the floor by Ms. Tristan and a second by Ms. Ridge for Bickerstaff to go into negotiations of a contract.
Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion. I'd like to amend the motion to approve staff to solicit negotiations or proposals for professional service agreements with Bickerstaff and with Andrews and Kurth with a cap of $25,000.
I'd like to second the amendment. We have a motion to amend by Ms. Krennick and a second by Mr. Murdoch.
Did you mean Andrews and Kerr?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Andrews and Kurth. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Bickerstaff and Andrews and Kurth.
You did mean Andrews.
You did mean Andrews and
The
Kurth.
$250,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if they really don't want the work, then they'll just say thank you, but no thank you, and then at least we'll know. But I just think $250,000 is very steep price tag for what I think the city of Fulshear needs. And I don't know, but I know we have to do a lot of, I just want to check it out.
All right, so we have a amendment by Ms. Krennic and a second by Mr. Murdock to add the other two in for negotiation at a cap. Is that correct?
So y'all doing all three or just two?
No, I thought it was just the two.
I just did two.
And could you restate who those two were?
Sure. I make a motion to amend the pending motion to authorize staff to go out and negotiate a professional service agreement with Price between Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta, and Andrews and Kurth, and we're looking to cap that expenditure at $25,000.
Okay.
Can we tell them that going in?
You can,
Public record.
but then the reason I say that is because if we look at our budget and what we have currently, when we did our current budget, we budgeted $38,000 for this. We may go over $25,000, but if we say $35,000, then we only have a $3,000 cushion to bump up against, as opposed to a $13,000 cushion. So I think we just need to be prudent. If we're totally off base and it's gonna cost us every bit of 30 or 35 or 38,000, then we at least need to know that. But if we can nail this down to specifics, if it's 100 hours worth of attorney time, if it's 3 meetings, 3 maps, 5 maps, 2 meetings, whatever it is, let's talk apples to apples and get those proposals. And if Andrews Kurth come back and said, we said 250,000, thanks, that's what we wanna offer you, then we'll have our answer.
We have an amendment by Ms. Krennic and a second by Mr. Murdock. All those in favor to the
I've got
amendment?
a question.
You have another question?
Thank you. So how long is this gonna take?
I would hope it wouldn't take till August.
That's a question. I mean, I'd like to get on with this, and
Right.
we'll wait until the next city council meeting before we can get this approved. I'd like to debate this a little bit further. So how long is it gonna take? Is your motion suggesting that if they get agreement below 25,000, they choose the firm? Or do they have to come back to city council?
Well, this motion, or the original motion as it was proffered, they wouldn't be coming back to city council till August anyway.
Right, because
So
they're
at
asking
least,
us to select a firm.
Right.
But now we're not selecting a firm.
but we can select a firm between those two. That's gonna be our decisions, we've narrowed the
That's
field.
my question.
So is I think Mr. Gill's question is the amendment an approval for staff to negotiate a contract not more than $25,000 with one of these two firms? Or is the amendment, I think I'm going down the right path here, or is the amendment to authorize staff to explore with both firms and then bring back a proposal to council?
Who made the original motion? And what was your motion?
To approve Acosta based on their,
Two bigger staff.
Bigger staff.
I mean, yeah, because their range is 18 to 25,000.
So then the amendment, it says to negotiate between two.
And Michael, you had some conversation with Andrews and Kurth with respect to the $250,000 proposal. And so what do they say? I mean, are they saying basically it's 250,000, we recognize Fulshear as a city of 8,000 people, but that's it?
My last comment back to them was, do you realize we're 8,000 and 12 and a half square miles? And I didn't get to see that reply before I left. They were basically saying, this is our number, and they apparently have, they have experts that they go to that I think, and that's a lot of it, I think their experts possibly cost more than.
They're experts for the exact same ones identified in Bickerstaff's proposal, they use the same ones.
It doesn't make, that one is like when we open bids and we get a bid of, 500,000, we get another bid of 1.5 million.
I say get contracts from both, and if one of them's 250,000, then we'll know that'll be an easy decision to offer.
And my concern is one of timing, so how long is this gonna take to get done? And does it have to come back to city council?
Oh, and with that timing, I'd like to add to that, what's the difference between now and August on timing and what we can do moving forward? I mean, if we get a better result with a better company, I mean, a better firm, I mean, what's the difference between August and July?
We have a February deadline, don't we?
We do have February.
Yes, February is the deadline to call the May elections. You need to have your districts drawn by that time, so you can call the elections for the 2 districts that are up in 2017. So, if you authorize the managers to go negotiate between 2 and whoever the lowest is, go with them, then you have 30 days to answer your question. You have 30 days that they can start getting it together, engaging the experts, start crunching the numbers.
Okay, fair enough. If they get that in 30 days and they go with the lowest one, I mean, if Andrews Curve comes back and says 250,000, we told you the first time, and that's what we're gonna stick with, then staff would be authorized to move forward with that
But if they
contract.
come back at 25,000 and Bickerstaff's at 25,000, then
Bickerstaff said 18 to 20. Do you prefer?
So
I don't think Andrews is gonna drop it.
I don't think so. I mean, you know, a legal firm that says is asked for an RFQ and they come back and they say it's 250,000, then the assistant city manager calls them and says, "Are you sure it's 250,000? Yes, it's 250,000. What am I not getting? I mean, the price is 250,000. Why would they change that?
I don't know what was sent out in the RFQ, so I don't know what that looks like.
So you're
If you
thinking the
look at the
RFQ is
three,
in-
if you look at the 3 qualifications that came back, no one is exactly the same. They have the general same process because I think demography is kind of a streamlined process in putting together single member districts. But they're citing the same representatives, and I get that Bickerstaff is, I don't have any problem with them, but I think that we're gonna contract with a firm from Austin, we're gonna pay for drive time. I mean, we're paying for things that we shouldn't have to pay for when we have an expert who's using the same people that Bickerstaff's using in our own backyard. But if the
The
price is,
Andrews Curve.
yes, they're in Houston. They're the only one based in Houston. The other 2 firms were actually based out of Austin. And I recognize that Austin, that's a good right ground for them, and they do work all over the state. I mean, I read their entire qualifications. It's just, that is so far out of left field, and it's at the 11th hour, which most of tonight's agenda had been this way, that I just think it's worth another conversation. And Mr. Ross said that he wrote, "Are you sure this is," and then he didn't get the chance to see the reply. We owe it to ourselves by the end of the week to have this information that can be communicated back to council, and it's not that onerous on us to get back together and make a decision. But to pay for someone driving from Austin, which is gonna be on more than one occasion, and I know that we have technology and that's gonna be highly utilized, and they outline all of that. They're the platinum standard, but let's just make sure that this is what it is. I was just blown away when I got this memo and it says
Yeah, me too.
250,000.
I think we all are, just to move things along, I think we have an amendment by Ms. Krennic and a second by Mr. Murdoch to go out with, Bickerstaff and Andrews Kurth to renegotiate, to possibly bring in their bid,
Does that amendment also give them the ability
that's what I would make that determination.
make the determination?
Yeah, that's fine.
So at the lowest
Can you
bid.
state that in the
Sure, all right.
time is of the essence, and that's what I'm.
Okay, I agree. I make a motion to amend the pending motion to get actual bid proposals from Andrews and Kurth and Bickerstaff, and that staff be authorized to enter into an agreement with the lowest of those 2 firms.
Okay, we have
And that should happen as time is of the essence for this particular issue.
Second.
So we have
Do you still
motion
wanna
made by
second
Ms.
that?
Mr. Gill seconded.
Okay.
Alright, so we have that item. Any other questions? Okay, we'll take the amendment first. All those in favor? By Ms. Krennic's motion to amend by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So that item passes. Back to the,
I think you have an amendment to an amendment.
Yes.
to the amendment to.
So it's, but if it passed, then you don't have to vote on anything up because that passed, and you authorize the action.
Good. That's where we go. Thank you. Moving to item L, consideration and possible action to approve list of salvage and surplus items for auction and potential disposal by the city of Fulton.
Thank you, Mayor. Texas local government code requires the city to dispose of salvage property, surplus property, excuse me, in accordance with their requirements by competitive bid or by auction. The The city of Fulshear has various surplus items available for auction. The code defines surplus property as personal property that is not salvage property or items routinely discarded as waste. Number 2 is not currently needed by its owner. Number 3 is not required for the owner's foreseeable needs. And 4 possesses some usefulness for the purpose for which it was intended. Staff has compiled a list of surplus items for auction, which is attached for reference. Staff recommends the following. We ask council to declare the attached list of items as surplus and allow for their auction by govdeals.com. That's a common company that does it for almost all cities. And number 2, to declare items that do not receive a bid as worthless and approve the elimination of those remaining items by any means necessary, which means throw them away or whatever, once they reach that point. Goodwill. Another option.
Maybe the staff's recommendation, do I have a motion to approve the list of salvage and surplus items?
I move that we approve the list of salvage and surplus items.
I have a,
Some offices cleaned out.
I have a motion, I'll give it to Mr. Ridge, I have a second by Mr. Tristan. Any other questions?
Can we use gov.com or govdeals.com before?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Item L passes. Thank you. Moving to item M, consideration and possible action to approve a budget amendment for the Fulshear 4B Development Corporation operating budget for fiscal year 2015 through 2016. Ms. Fulshear.
Council, Mayor, good evening. That's really loud, sorry. So I just wanted to make note of the fact that I gave you a new document this evening. I apologize. What was included in your packet was actually a worksheet from working in through adding it to our GL, but the document that you have that I put on the dais tonight actually outlines the actual budget amendment that was approved by the B Corporation. So Development Corp B approved a budget amendment for the respective Fund 700 for the purposes of the Texas Leverage Fund debt issuance. Subsequently, this resulted in the creation of a project fund, which will track the actual expense of the project. So this is in line with what you actually looked at last month for Corp A. This is just Corp B. They actually had to go through the process of approving their budget, so now it's being presented to you this evening.
So this is to track the funds that we're getting from the governor's office?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's that it actually amends their original budget to add in for the debt issuance portion and then creates an additional fund just to track the actual project itself.
I make a motion to approve the budget amendment for Fulshear 4B Development Corp. Operating budget for 2015-2016.
We have a motion by Ms. Krennic. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Gill. Any questions? Being none, all those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to item N, consideration and possible action to approve resolution 2016-313, a resolution of the city of Fulshear appointing members to the city's planning and zoning commission.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this, or I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution of the city council, of the city of Fulshear appointing members to the city's planning and zoning commission.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Murdock to approve. We have a second by Ms. Tristan. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ms. Krennic, go ahead.
I'm a little concerned about the way and method the replacement of all of our boards and commissions are being handled. And I understand that it's the prerogative of the mayor to appoint and recommend people for boards and commissions under our charter, and I certainly appreciate that. But it's also the province of council to approve those appointments. And essentially what we're doing in a lot of this is we're doing a wholesale wiping the slate clean and putting a lot of new people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the manner in which it was handled is not necessarily something that I think we want to set as a precedent for the city. And that being that our current volunteers were not notified or given the courtesy to let them know that, hey, thank you for your service, until very late in the day today with a letter that was dated July 17th, A lot of them found out because it was posted on the internet when the agenda went up. And I just, I wanna make sure we give deference to all of our volunteers, new, old, people who've worked for a long time, because we're a city that came from not having very many volunteers at all, and the city was constantly having to go out and beg and scrape and get volunteers and people to step up and give their time. And some of the council members here know that that was very much a reality when we were just a young city headed down this road. But this wholesale change is a shock to the system. And it doesn't pay any deference to the institutional knowledge that we've gained in each of these boards or commissions, or the continuity of moving forward. More importantly, specifically for planning and zoning on resolution 313, we have everyone with an exact same term. And so it's just a continual shock to the system. And I recognize that the ordinance was written that way, but if you look at all of our other boards and commissions, they're staggered terms. And I think that's a responsible way to do it, so that you have continuity and overlap, and you're not just constantly shocking the system and basically, potentially, putting the city at a standstill when handling business. So, with that said, looking at our past process of how we put volunteers on committees, we asked everyone to submit a volunteer application, which was uploaded to council so we could review that. And in recent months, when you were also a counselor with us, we kind of held the standard that we didn't want to cross-pollinate or multiple people being on multiple committees, because there were a lot of volunteers. There's a whole bank of volunteer applications for people to choose from that can bring experience to the city. A lot of these applications I have not had an opportunity to review, because they have been sent to each council member within the last 48 hours, at least to my knowledge. I don't know when they were turned in, but they weren't released to us. And we've made votes historically in the past where we've said, we're not going to seat council members on commissions. We're not going to seat someone who's already on one or two different commissions. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to serve the city. And I just think that without time to review these applications, we can't make an informed decision on who we're putting on there. These could be very qualified individuals, and some of them I know and some of them I don't know, and some of them I had no resource to go to. And we didn't have an opportunity, at least I didn't have an opportunity to go into, and a lot of people who are currently serving that are being replaced can attest to the fact that I probably picked up the phone or asked them if I had questions about their application that wasn't fully laid out. And a lot of people fill out extremely thorough applications and give a very good synopsis of what services and what strengths they can bring to the city. And I just think moving forward, if we're gonna continue to be a great city, we need to stick to a clear and consistent methodology in putting people and volunteers on these positions and these these commissions and boards.
Tricia, I have to differ with you on one thing is, sorry.
Let me speak to that. I appreciate your opinion. I respect your opinion. I am given the authority by the charter to make changes to all the committees. That is what's being done here. It was nothing personal on any standard of that. I do apologize that a lot of these applications were given to you as of late. I don't take that personally as my fault. I think it's a fault of the city's website. A lot of these people had submitted applications far in advance, and by hitting submit, they thought they were submitted. Some of the individuals were out on vacation, and they just returned back today, and we had to ask them to fill out an application based on we did not receive it through the city, and they said, well, we submitted it. You know, our website did not allow that button that says submit to actually take it and be submitted to the city. So that's a fault of our website. So that's some of the reasons some of these things are given as of late. Also, a lot of these decisions were last minute given to Mr. Snipes on Friday before the packets went out. So some of those I didn't actually see that we needed all the amount of members on each committee. And so I didn't fill each position until I found out that by resolution that almost all of them had to have that amount of people. And so I was actually late on getting some of those into them, and from that point we made those changes and got those to them. I appreciate your opinion. I've sat on this council long enough to know that there's always been changes, and sometimes we didn't get the names until the day of, when we sat here at the council meeting and opened up our packet, and there was those names finally presented to us. So you have the option. There is a motion made by Mr. Murdoch and a second by Ms. Tristan to approve these. If you wish not to approve, you have that choice in your vote, and I appreciate your opinion.
Well, and I appreciate that, Mayor. I just think that we need a clear, consistent, transparent, and fair process in doing this, and this is very rushed, and I don't think that there's anything when we're trying to make quality decisions for the city that should be rushed.
I'd like to second that, and I totally agree with those sentiments. I too, I found out that I'm currently serving Development Corp A. I found out, actually got a phone call from Mayor Kirkendall Thursday morning letting me know that I was not going to be, I was going to be basically removed from Development Corp A. I picked up my packet lunchtime from City Hall and it confirmed it. And I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt by thinking, okay, well, the mayor is basically removing me as a city council member because I am a city council member, and he's taken the position that city council members shouldn't sit on boards and committees. So I would applaud that, because I happen to agree with that position. There's enough volunteers in the city of Fulshear now that I don't think it's necessary, as it has been in the past, for city council members to have to sit on boards and commissions. So that was my initial impression, but then as I started to move through the nominations, I could see that Ms. Ridge was still on Parks Commission. I think she's still probably on the Sign Commission, although there's no mention about what you're doing with respect to the Sign Commission, so I presume nothing. Committee, sorry. So, yeah, the manner in which it was done, I got a number of phone calls during the course of this weekend from people who have given a lot of time and service to this city, and I'm very grateful for the time and service that they've given, and this city is definitely in their debt. And to be treated in this way, frankly, is frankly disrespectful. And so I'm very disappointed by that. I was personally disappointed too. I have not yet received an explanation as to why I'm being removed from Development Corp A. I'll give you the opportunity in a couple of minutes to give me an explanation. But as I said, I thought it might be because we're going to not have council members on boards and committees. The manner in which was done, not acceptable. I am concerned about the lack of the loss of experience and institutional knowledge, because, I mean, across the board, many of these names I don't recognize, shame on me, but frankly, I got the applications today, and I have been in meetings all day long. I did not get the opportunity to read those meetings today, so I have not had the opportunity to learn about the people that you've nominated. I'm also surprised at your comments where you say that they tried to submit it to the website, but it didn't accept it, so you had to ask them today to submit their applications. So I wonder on what criteria you were actually selecting people if you didn't have an application to read. Maybe it's through personal knowledge, and judging by the nominations, it is through personal knowledge. I understand politics, and I get it, and you're absolutely right. You have the prerogative to select the various candidates for city council, and for these committees, and city council then has to take further. I would like to I'd like to make a nomination, a motion that we defer this item to the next council meeting, give you the opportunity to rethink this matter.
Again,
I would like to also speak. When I received the list on Friday, I think I spoke to CJ when I was in City Hall about how they were notifying people that were leaving the commissions, and they told me that the city was emailing them on Friday. I'm sorry to the volunteers on those commissions if that wasn't done on Friday. I was told would happen. I appreciate all of their service. Anyone I didn't know since Friday, since we did have the digital copy in Dropbox, I either contacted that person or called Mayor Roberts or CJ to see information, because I don't recognize them all either, to find out information on these people. And, you know, I think that Mayor Roberts does have the right to this list, and we have to trust him for the people that he chose.
I would like to speak to, I understand the city charter and the mayor having the right to choose individuals in which he trusts to fill on these commissions. I'd like to call out on 4A. I know Bill Archer and Jamie Collins, those two I know have done a great job, and I'd like to call out, I would like to see them continue their service. 4B, Larry Bowstring, Joe Douglas, Parker Knapp. I don't, the methodology on how new people were picked, I'm not sure about, but I kind of, in my mind, related it to kind of like George W. Bush having a cabinet and a new president coming in, having new people advising him. That's kind of what the new mayor has done. But at the same time, when I kind of balance it on the local level, to offset these, stagger these people, because some of these people have been doing this for years. Some of these people have their heart and their devotion is into these, and I get that. And this is, when I saw this one, I really feel like that my 2 months on council, this has been the hardest, most difficult piece to really decide upon. And I've talked to several individuals over the last 3 or 4 days. There's people out there that, yeah, they deserve to know why. I feel like that they were chosen not to, why they were chosen to be replaced, but our difference in opinion is going to happen from time to time, and on some of these I'm totally on par with, and some of these I'm not. But I just wanted to make that statement.
I appreciate everybody's statements. To the members that I've asked to be replaced, it was nothing personal. Any part of that, I appreciate everybody's volunteerism to the city of Fulshear. I think we are where we are because volunteers have had a major role in putting us into that position. Just like what Mr. Murdoch said, it's basically, now that I am in position as mayor, I have always had a lot of people that wanted to volunteer and came up to me directly and wanted to be on committees and be in, they wanted to know how they can get involved in the city, and asked to be on different committees. And based on that, I've made changes to a lot of the committees on that. Nothing personal with Mr. Gill and being on the corporate that he was on, but I had individuals that were asked that like to be on the EDC board, so I made a decision. I know it's probably not the most popular one with everybody, but those decisions are made, and you as council have that right to vote on my recommendations based on my recommendations. So with that being said, we do have a motion on the floor, and we do have a second. And
Mayor, with all due respect, I have one more comment. You said that you just made a statement that you talk to these people, you review their applications, and I respect that you probably have personal relationships with most everyone you put on these committees, and I'm not quibbling with that, nor am I quibbling with your right to put them on there. But it's not fair or even accurate to say that you reviewed these applications before, because some of these weren't even submitted. In fact, most of these weren't submitted until the 16th, between the 16th and the 19th, and some of them even came in today.
as I probably will state to you now, I never said that I reviewed everybody's application. Some of them just came in this evening.
And
I
some
know
of them
a lot of
we
these,
don't have applications.
and like I said, I know a lot of these people personal that asked to be on these committees, and I chose them based on my knowledge of who they are and what they could bring to the city. And so that's where a lot of I base my decision making on. And so, like I said, you have that opportunity to either approve or not approve based on that to move along. We have a motion, we have a second.
We also have people that have been sitting on committees for years that have never filled out an application. There are plenty of people that sat on a committee or commission for 6 years and they just got their application in today. And many times we receive the names the evening of the city council meeting with no application.
And on those very occasions that we did that, the council did not vote them in, did not go forward because they wanted opportunity. And all I'm saying is that the process should be clear, fair, equal, and transparent. And it should be consistent above all things, just like our communications with our citizens. That's all I'm saying, and that's my point, and this was not a consistent process. It does not follow our previous protocols, if that's what we wanna rely on, a historical analysis of how we do this.
We don't have a previous protocol.
Well, again, with all due respect, we do, because we have appointed people to boards and commissions in the past, and we have made decisions, as some of us together have said, no, we're not going to accept that person because they already sit on a different committee. No, we're not gonna accept that person because we got their application late, or we want time to correct that, and we can go through our minutes to verify that that is in fact what our actions were.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this item to the next city council meeting so that we may have an opportunity to rethink this.
Unfortunately, I don't think because we have a pending motion, you have to either amend it or.
We currently have a motion and a second, and to that, I'll call for a vote to approve resolution 2016-313. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We have 2 nays, 3 ayes. That motion passes. Alright. Moving to item O, consideration and possible action to approve a resolution 2016-314, a resolution of the city of Fulshear creating a historic preservation and museum committee.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Tristan to approve. We have a second by Ms. Ridge. Any questions?
Again, Mayor, I just resubmit my comments that I made applicable to resolution 313, and I don't wanna regurgitate them.
So noted. Thank you.
But we do have missing applications on this and applications that are not signed.
And you wanna make comment to which ones those are?
No, the
No?
council has their packet.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Being none, call for a vote. All those in favor by saying aye. All those. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
3 ayes, 2 nays. That item passes. Moving to item P, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2016-315, resolution of the city of Fulshear appointing members to the city's Parks and Recreation Commission.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2016.
We have a motion by Ms. Tristan to approve. Do we have a second?
This one, I had a little heartburn over, because
We have a motion. Do
Oh, I'm sorry.
we make a second? With no second, that item dies to the lack of a second. Moving to item Q, consideration and possible action to approve resolution 2016-316, resolution of the city of Fulshear appointing members to the city's 4A Development Corporation.
Mayor, I'd reassert my same comments as to resolution 313, 314, and 315.
So noted. We have a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2016-316.
We have a motion by Ms. Tristan to approve. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Ridge. Any other questions? Being none, call for a vote. All those in favor by saying aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We have 3 nays. That item fails. 3 nays, 2 ayes. Consideration and possible action on item R to approve resolution 2016-317, resolution of the city of Fulshear appointing members to the city's 4B Development Corp.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Tristan.
You
Second.
combined R and S.
Yes, and if council would, we did combine R and S back together, so we'll take that as one motion.
Can I ask a question?
We have a motion first on the floor, if anybody would like a second. Anybody second?
Is this on 4B?
This is on 4B, item R and S together. We have a motion, do we have a second? Being no second, item R and S die for lack of a motion. T, consideration and possible action to approve the interlocal agreement between the city of Fulshear and the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Employee Benefit Pool, TML-IEBP, setting rates for employee health care coverage for fiscal year 2016 to 2017.
Staff recommends the rewrite proposal on the interlocal agreement with Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Pool. We are not positioned to self-insure at this time.
So moved. Second.
The motion by Mr. Gill and second by Ms. Krunig. Any questions?
I do, so does this giving us the numbers on how to insure from outside instead of, when you're saying self-insure, is that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Murray. Yeah, we participate in a region, or in a statewide pool. Actually, it's multiple states now, or municipalities that pool their money and go into a cooperative for insurance programs. Staff, as we get into the budget discussions, will discuss some issues that we have. I mean, it's good coverage, but it can be disadvantageous to the employee on some occasion. And so, there's been discussion previously about the possibility of changing our benefits package and moving to a self-insured program. We're not prepared to do so at this time, and that's why we're recommending approval of this agreement.
Any other questions? Being none, I'll call for a vote. We have a motion by Mr. Gill and second by Ms. Krunig. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That item passes. Thank you. Moving to item U, consideration and possible action to approve a 10-20 year write-off per Texas Property Tax Code, section 33.05.
This again is a standard housekeeping matter.
Right, and just for the record, that's all we weren't able to collect? That's pretty impressive, $71.28, and so I so moved to approve the write-off.
Motion by Ms. Krunig to approve, second by Ms. Tristan. Any questions? All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item U passes. Thank you very much. Item V is executive session, closed session in accordance with the Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, closed meeting. A government body may conduct a closed meeting to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. If deliberation is open meeting, would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiation with a third person. And so at 8:53 p.m., Ms. D, if you would note, we will go into a closed session, and I ask, being that we're in this facility, that everybody in the public will have to leave this facility. And please take all your personal items with you, be it cameras, be it cell phones, any personal items, please take those with you as well.